Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is the Dynasty Owners Manual podcast, fellas, here answering your mailbag questions here at DLF. And we're doing this kind of off the cuff tonight. We wanted to get something out because it's been a little bit, and we hope first and foremost this finds everybody safe and well, given the current issues going on, like with the virus spreading and whatnot. We're hoping everybody's okay, but we want to give you guys a quick distraction as we've got a couple of mailbag questions for you. But first, before we get into that, if you want to go ahead and, obviously like, subscribe, check us out on YouTube if you can. But for any other future mailbag questions, feel free to hit us down at the link below him. Any questions that you've got, like, they'll get submitted to us like via email, and of course we'll do a little bit of research, think about it for a hot minute, and then get us your thoughts back. So with that, definitely hit us out, check us out at either of those two areas, and then we'll definitely get our thoughts back to you. But we'll just go ahead and hop right into it. So first question, this was actually an email that was given to us. So we've got a guy that's talking about going into a full rebuild after winning 3 championships in a row. We'll set that aside for a second. But he's saying he's got the 111 and the 112, and he's looking to trade some of his players and maybe package some players together in order to get, I guess, higher into this year's draft class. Specifically, he referenced, would you try and take somebody like Cam Akers, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, J.K. Dobbins, Jerry Jeudy, or CeeDee Lamb, or do you go best player available? So essentially getting into the drafting for need or drafting for best player available debate that some draft analysts have year in, year out. And he's thinking the first 3 picks will most likely be running backs in his league. That should be true. So he's deciding what picks to aim for. And so he wants to try and get our insight into that. So with that, Adam, what would your approach be to this draft?
Yeah, that's simple for me at the beginning. Is just best player available no matter what. And you're going to show a graphic on why I believe that here in just a second. But the other thing to tackle just real quick, he says that he needs to go into full rebuild after 3 championships. The only reason I could think that is a lot of people usually basically buy out of their draft picks to help win now. But he has 2 in the first round. So maybe it was a situation where maybe you rode like Julio, Antonio Brown, and AJ Green to 3 championships, and then last year it fell apart or something like that. I could see that situation. We didn't get to see his roster, so we're not exactly sure. What I would try to do, especially on a team that's very good right now, is actually package the 11 and the 12 to try to get into the top 7. I think the top 7 is huge in this draft, and then it's just braces off a little bit. So at the 11 and 12, you'd be looking at something like Ruggs and Jefferson, which I don't hate at all. 2 players that I think will be pretty valuable, but I would rather have Rager probably, depending on where they get drafted. So my opinion, I'd probably take those 2 picks and trade up, but you could also trade them for players. The first round picks are so valuable right now, and just seeing a first in front of it is the biggest difference psychologically when you're making a trade with somebody. Seeing that 111 and 112, though we know it's not a huge difference from the 201, it's just valued differently. So I'd probably be looking to trade the late first if I couldn't get into the early first.
Yeah, I think that, to me, that makes the most sense. And of course, it's been a little bit, but I want to see how that actually works out from a mathematical or analytical perspective. And so in order to do that, I'm just going to bring up our tried and true method of looking at the Dynasty Trade Analyzer that we have available on DLF. So if you wanted to try and move into that arena, so if you're looking towards or looking at a late first pick, trying to package both of them together in order to get into the middle of the first, that seems doable, at least from a value perspective. So using our package value adjustment and looking at the scores associated with them, moving into the 105, somewhere in there, it seems like it's doable. So when he's looking at players like not necessarily Dobbins, because Dobbins would be gone, but let's see, Clyde Edwards-Helaire,
Sure.
should be able to knock out, should be able to get somebody like that.
And maybe Cam Akers, but then they would have to both be in pretty bad spots. I think they're going to get into good spots and get up earlier as well. It's probably going to be that group of wide receivers like Higgins, Ruggs, Jefferson are going to kind of be going back and forth in that position.
Yeah, I think so. And the other aspect to take a look at, and this is, I mean, not really an analytical perspective, but it's more of just like a game theory perspective and the way that I'm thinking about it. I'm not all that great at drafting. I like to do it. I mean, I like to invest in as many best balls as possible so I can have as many bullets in the chamber. And that thought process to me kind of ekes over into Dynasty because if I have two later draft picks or even just two draft picks in the first round, I like to have as many shots at trying to maybe capture some of that value, some even if it is late round, like first round value. And to kind of highlight why that might be important, this was a tweet from Ryan McDowell, just I want to say within the last week or so, where he was actually looking at, or he pointed out the some of our, I guess, our misses as a collective, like from some of the past drafts. I mean, dude, like, I mean, look at some of these names, man. I mean, these are like this is first
Bishop
round, like
Sankey,
ADP title. I mean, look at that Bishop Sankey that we all thought was going to be great. I'm
Cody
looking at
Latimer.
the 2013 draft where it was Monty Ball, where we thought he was going to take over the Denver backfield.
Yep.
I mean, you can see a lot of the hits. I mean, Tavon Austin at the 101.
Yep.
I mean, that's where we were at collectively in 2013. And it's just these are the stances that we've taken collectively, and you can see the hits. I mean, you can see how well, I mean, Andrew Luck for a time was. You can see how well guys like, I mean, Odell Beckham. You see Brandon Cooks in there. You see Mike Evans in there, the famous like 2014 class. But you can also see a lot of our misses. I mean,
Kevin White,
you can see Kevin White in there. You can see TJ Yeldon
Dorial
in
Green
there,
Beckham.
Dorial Green Beckham in there. I mean, Kenneth Dixon in there. I mean, so
Sure.
on and so forth throughout all of like this is the past like 10 years worth of draft classes. And so for me, like while trying to trade up makes some sense, but also trying to hold on to some of that value like towards the back end of the draft and looking at their profiles and trying to identify value later in the first round, even into the early second round, also makes some sense. So,
Sure.
I mean, and I guess we'd already kind of hinted at this beforehand, but if you have enough on your roster already in order to make it into win your league and win your dynasty
Three
league
times in a row.
three times in a row, you have to have at least walked into a few ascending players, maybe some second, third, or fourth year players. I mean, there should be enough there that, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily initiate a full on rebuild. Maybe moving away from some of the older veterans, like you'd mentioned, Adam, if you're holding on to AJ Green, T.Y. Hilton, Julio, I mean, moving away from some of those players makes some sense. But I mean, unless you were maybe you had Cam Newton and you had to like patchwork Ryan Fitzpatrick and maybe a couple other quarterbacks throughout the season, I can understand. But again, from a team building perspective, it just makes sense to me to try and capture as much value as we versus moving up. I would like to try and capture that in the late first, early second. I mean, just looking at the dearth of talent that we thought was in the first round, but we were just never able to latch onto it.
Yeah, sounds good to me. And the point of showing that graphic is not to scare people away from drafting. It's just that that's what happens with first round picks. That's why we advised in the last episode to try to build your team. Hopefully you bought low on some players that ended up panning out, and you've created enough value in your roster to where your first round pick should be an added bonus. If they hit, that's fantastic. If they miss, you're still competing, because if you rely on those first round picks, there's just so many landmines that you can fall on.
Yeah, and which is the kind of unfortunate part. I mean, I'm still looking at now. I'm looking at this a bit more. And gosh, Josh Doxson.
You could go forever on that thing. I did.
Juan Treadwell, Corey Coleman. Yeah. John Ross. Okay. All right. Let me, because I have quite a few of these guys on my own squads, so I don't even want to look at this anymore. All right. Well, I'm hoping that, again, that this provided some insight into how to build. Hopefully we can get some more context, or, I mean, let us know what you think. I mean, while we don't have specific examples, or while we don't have a roster in order to try and see how we could package some players together in order to move up, I mean, let us know what you think in the comment that you'll see once we get this uploaded to YouTube, or drop us a line. You can see our Twitter handles here down below us. Let us know what you think, or how you would try and move from the 111 or the 112 like up into the early portions of the first round. Like if you wanted to try and acquire some of that high round or like those highly talented players that have been touted over the past like few weeks since we've been getting more information out of the combine, definitely let us know what you would think would be the best move for this person if they wanted to move into it, or let us know if you think they should hold. And again, based off of what you can, I guess, in like what your intuition tells you, like from the strength of their roster, if they should just hold at the 111, 112. We'd like to know that as well. All right. So, second question for tonight. So, here's what we got. So, we've got thoughts on trading up in a startup. So, this person has, I mean, I guess trying to figure out how to navigate through a startup. I mean, everyone says to move down, but they're wondering why. And is there an analytical way to approach moving up or down, I guess, in a startup draft? What are your thoughts here?
Well, the first answer is I don't think so. If you think of a way to show that with quantitative data, let me know. You would just have to look at a league by league perspective. For example, I traded what ended up being a 2021, 2019 102, and a late round startup pick for Darius Geis. And it didn't look bad when I did it, but it ended up being very bad. That was a horrible trade for me. So if you go ahead and share my screen, Chris, I'm just looking at ADP here, and it can go really wrong. But it happens a lot. But trading back can also be great. And that's why people always say to do it, because I've said it time and time again, the first round, you should not have any misses. That's why I don't agree with Joe, because you should not have any questions in the first round. I don't believe there's any question marks around Nick Chubb. I don't think there's question marks with Tyreek Hill as long as he doesn't get in trouble. None of these guys have any question marks to me except for Joe Mixon. So I'll use Joe Mixon as an example here. Say you have the first overall pick and you don't want to wait all the way until pick 23 to pick again. Even though it'd be nice to have Christian McCaffrey. So you trade back. When you trade back, you're going to get something later in the first. Then you'll probably get their third outright, and then you'll probably get maybe a fifth. And this is just being probably pretty generous. So we're talking the 10th overall pick, the third round pick, and the fifth round pick, and maybe you'll throw in an 8th round pick on top of that or something. If you trade back and you get Joe Mixon and things don't turn out well in Cincinnati, especially since they're trying to turn that team Bernard, that's going to be tough because that was the predominant piece in that trade. So if we flip Joe Mixon and DeAndre Hopkins, well, I kind of like to build my team around stud wide receivers anyways, rather than running backs. They just have a longer shelf life, and I feel like I can find running back production elsewhere. So if we're talking about moving from Christian McCaffrey to DeAndre Hopkins, and then we'll go down here to the third around this area, I really like CeeDee Lamb, and Stephon Diggs will probably go down a little because of the recent trade to Buffalo, but we'll say Keenan Allen, even CeeDee Lamb. So now we're talking about getting two very good wide receivers for Christian McCaffrey, and then we would get something in the 5th round. So let's go down here to maybe you find your running back production. Maybe Le'Veon Bell turns things around, or even Kerryon Johnson's a huge value right now. Mm-hmm. So maybe you get your productive running back on top of 2 stud wide receivers for your first overall pick. So I can tell you that's why most people want to trade down. I'll tell you, I've done both. I've traded up and down a million times in drafts, and it's just about feeling out the draft. And if somebody falls so far that it's unbearable, like Darius Geis did for me at the time, and maybe that would have panned out had he been healthy, I think you pull the trigger on it. You shouldn't let guys fall too far. If they're going to be a value and they're going to provide more value for the team than what you're going to trade up. And if you're in a spot where you don't want Christian McCaffrey because he's just so valuable right now, trade down.
Yeah, I think so. I guess the way that I would think about trading up in order to acquire a player goes back to, I want to say, should be one of the fundamental reasons for folks playing dynasty football or just fantasy football in general, is that it should be fun. So if you want to try and move up in order to, let's say, move up in the first round in order to acquire somebody like Odell Beckham because like he is your favorite wide receiver, or try and move up to pick up Nick Chubb because you love Nick Chubb or whatever, do that. All right. apply some reason to it. I mean, you don't want to try and sink your team because that can, automatically affect or negatively impact your team depending on who you're investing in. But I think that moving up in order to grab a player you have conviction about, that makes some sense. But at the same time, understanding that moving up in the draft will cost you draft capital later in the draft. I mean, it's very hard for me to envision a trade where you move up in the draft without having to sacrifice much more later in the draft. And for the most part, I mean, the ADP will most likely guide the first couple of rounds of your draft. I would say first through third, like somewhere in there. A lot of that starts, and then ADP might start to differentiate like somewhere around the fourth. And you'll find a lot of your value there because you'll get a mix of established veterans. Rookie picks now start to come into play like around there a lot. So that's where you'll see people start to take stances as you start to see different types of players get mixed into the startup draft. So that's where, I would rather have more shots in that area of the draft than anything else. I mean, first round talent is first round talent, don't get me wrong. But if I wanted to try and at least acquire the most number of bullets, the most number of chances to draft, I would want to try and move back in order to have more chances there. Because as I mentioned in the previous question we were talking about, from a strategy perspective, I know I'm not that great at drafting, but I can at least increase my chances of hitting on a good player if I have more draft picks. So if I sacrifice that chance by moving up in the first round because, oh my gosh, I need to get Nick Chubb. Oh my gosh, I need to get Odell Beckham. Oh my gosh, I need to get this player because you know them to be elite talent, then now you're going to wind up missing out on those value picks later on down the line. You're going to miss out on the Christian Kirks of the world. You're going to miss out on the CeeDee Lambs. Some of the rookies that are going to come in the 4th, 5th, and 6th round. So understand, and look at, you can try and gauge that by looking at ADP. You can try and gauge that by looking at your league mates and trying to feel out their tendencies. But a lot of that value is going to happen in that area. So moving up, it can help, but for the most part, I would rather, this is me, my personal preference, I'd rather have more draft chances or more the ability to take more chances, especially in that area where a lot of that value is going to occur.
Yeah, and this is also why it's so incredibly important to have tiers. That's why we're having this conversation, is because say here at pick 33, you have Kenny Golladay, DK Metcalf, Cooper Kupp, CeeDee Lamb, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, and Allen Robinson, Jerry Jeudy, all right around, and Calvin Ridley, all right around each other. If you don't have a big stance between Calvin Ridley and Kenny Golladay, why are you taking Kenny Golladay at pick 33? That's when you trade back 8 picks, and then you get whoever's left. If you're just as happy with Jerry Jeudy as you are with Kenny Golladay, why are you taking Kenny Golladay there? So try to work back, and once you get past that 4th round, that's when you're going to start getting into my favorite kind of trade. It's just you approach someone and you say, hey, I'll move you up 8 picks here if you move me up 2 rounds later. And it's fluent, and that's how it's done in pretty much every draft I've ever seen. It's, if somebody's not crazy about the pick, they're going to put in the group chat, hey, I'm looking to move this pick. You're just going to go up to them and you're going to say, hey, I have a pick I have a pick in 8 picks I pick. I'll move you back 8 picks now, move you up 2 rounds later. So I'll move you up from the 9th to the 7th round or something like that to move up now. That's the type of trades that you're going to get done. And that's just all revolves around your tiers. So please set up your tiers before you draft.
I agree with that. I definitely do. So, all right. So we appreciate you guys for sitting down and talking with us tonight. Again, if you have any further questions, you want to have us address it here. We've got, a super talented writing staff at Dynasty League Football that would be happy to try and give you a much more longer version of our answers here, or even getting their own perspectives. So as I mentioned beforehand, drop us a note at the link provided down below at Dynasty League Football. Contact us, DLF Mailbag. Hit us up there. I think if it hasn't already been announced, but try and check out the DLF store. Now, I know everybody had to have seen, the wonderful, wonderful video featuring the hotcakes and Henny that was done by the wonderful Ray Garvin. If you haven't seen it, go follow Ray at RayGQ, QUE. So check him out. Check all the work that he does over in the Debbie world, first and foremost. But Combine night with Jalen Reagor running the 40 time, that was iconic enough such that, I mean, they actually made a t-shirt. I mean, we got to show them. I mean, we definitely have to show them this. I mean, check out the shirt, guys. I mean, look at the shirt. I mean, let people know that they can come to Dynasty League football in order to get a Hotcakes and Henny shirt and represent, like, for DLF, represent for Ray and the wonderful work that he does. So with that, again, thank you guys for checking us out. We definitely we want to know, like, what you think about I guess our analysis. We want to know what you guys think about, I mean, some of the questions that some of the folks have had. So if you have a particular startup strategy that you like to employ in terms of moving up or moving back within a draft, definitely let us know. I mean, we love to have as many perspectives as possible, because with that, I mean, we just get smarter. I mean, listening and, like, kind of building off each other's ideas. I mean, that's how this community grows, and I love to see it. So with that, I'm Chris. You can find me at Chris Allen FFWX. My partner in crime, Adam, find him at AP Wildy. Let us know if you have any more questions, and we'll catch y'all next week.
Peace.